Mr. Poop. Mr. Poop. Hi guys, it is April from Getting Hooga With It. Today we're doing the last shelf from my Konmari with me method. What? It's the last shelf. It's historical fiction. It's specifically Black history and also Civil War history. Or historical fiction, I should say. So there's some heaviness in here. I'm ending on a heavy note, but let's get into it. I've got 25 books here. I need to dwindle them down to 20. Why? Because my shelf has been a hot mess. I've gone to my shelves and they look bad. They look overwhelming to me, and I really want neat and nice bookshelves that inspire me and get me excited to read. So essentially, I've got to bring each of my shelves down to 20. Now, I can keep 2 if I'm just not quite sure what to do with them, put them on the limbo pile. If I go over 20 books, I can also just pop over to my limbo shelf and take something from there to just balance it all out. So we'll see what happens in the end, but I need to get rid of 5. All right, I'm not getting rid of this one. It's The Secrets of Mary Bowser. This is just a fascinating story of this woman who was a slave her entire life. She ends up going to the North for her freedom, and she meets abolitionists there, and she agrees to go back to the South, to return to Richmond, and she poses as a slave in the Confederate White House in order to spy on President Jefferson Davis. Doesn't that sound amazing? Like, how risky is that? How brave? I absolutely need to read this. I'm keeping this. I'm keeping this too. The Book of Negroes by Lawrence Hill. I loved this book. We follow Aminata, who is born in Africa. She has wonderful parents, but she is kidnapped and sold into slavery. And we follow her to America. We also follow her beyond that. It's quite an adventure story, but also I loved Aminata. I feel so close to that character. Yeah, I loved every single second of reading this, so I'm keeping it. Next up is Song Yet Sung by James McBride. This is about a woman. It's actually about a slave revolt, and a bunch of slaves break out and run away, and they try to live on the swamps of Maryland. This is in 1850. And we follow Liz, who's a runaway slave. I don't know why this doesn't call out to me, but I think I'm actually going to let this go. I don't know why. I just don't feel like I want to read this story. I feel guilty, but yeah, I'm gonna let this go. Next up is The Rebel Wife by Taylor M. Polites. This is about a Southern woman in antebellum South. Her husband dies. She's left on her own. She's like living an entirely different existence now than she was accustomed to. I think I want to keep this one because there's a blurb on the back from Kathleen Grissom, who wrote The Kitchen House, which I loved. So I'd like to keep this and see what I think of it. Next up is The Polished Hoe by Austin Clarke. I believe this is Canadian. Yes, it's a Giller Prize winner. This is one of my sister's favorite books. And this follows a woman, an elderly woman, who confesses to a murder, and she's giving her statement of what happened to her and who she killed and why she killed them. She murdered Mr. Belfields, the powerful manager of the sugar plantation that dominates the lives of the village. And she'd worked for him for 30 years. I need to know the story. I can't believe I still haven't read this. So I'm 100% keeping this. The Secret Life of Bees was such a good book. I loved this book. This might actually not be, is this Black history? I'm not sure. Maybe this should be on my contemporary shelves. But it's set in South Carolina in 1964. We follow a white girl named Lily. Her mother died when she was quite young, and she has terrible memories surrounding the death. And she's really leaned on this Black woman who has worked for the family. She's kind of looked up to her as a mother, and her name is Rosaline. And Rosaline one day is going into town to vote, or to sign up to vote, and she's confronted by these terrible, terrible, racist white men in the town. And she kind of fights back because she's kind of awesome. Just freaking love Rosaline. Anyway, they have to run away. They've got to run away. And they go and stay with some beekeeping sisters who might have a history with her mother, Lily's mother. So I'm keeping this. I really enjoyed this book. 5 stars. Oh my goodness. The Kitchen House by Kathleen Grisham. This is so good. I loved this book so much. It is like, it's honestly like a soap opera in the sense of this speed, which everything happens. There is no time to breathe because the plot is go, go, go. We follow 2 women. One woman, well, she's a girl actually when we meet her. Her family moves from Ireland to America, and her family dies along the way. And so a slave owner takes her in, and she stays and lives and works alongside the slaves. We also follow Belle, who is the slave master's daughter, but she's also one of the slaves' daughters. So she is working alongside Lavinia, the white girl, and alongside all of the slaves, but she's, you know, treated slightly differently because of who her father is. I really loved this book. It's so good. Keeping it. The Help is another great book. I really enjoyed The Help. This follows Aibileen, who's a Black maid in 1962. She has these friends who are also maids, who are wonderful. Now, she works for a very wealthy family. That family has a daughter named Skeeter, and she wants to become like a reporter when she grows up. And she decides that she wants to tell the story of these Black maids. And it's such a great summer read. Oh my goodness. So I'm keeping this. The Known World is a really strange one. Well, first of all, it won the Pulitzer Prize. It is about a man, Henry Townsend, who's a Black farmer and also a former slave. He falls under the tutelage of this really powerful man in Manchester County, and he like runs his affairs with the same amount of discipline. He dies very suddenly, and it's up to his widow, Caledonia, to uphold the estate. Just sounds really fascinating to me, and not a perspective that we'd usually hear in Black history or know about, so I want to keep this. Next up is The Last Runaway. This takes place in Ohio, 1850, and we follow a Quaker woman who runs away from home. She ends up getting really involved in the Underground Railroad, which I find fascinating, so I want to keep this one because it sounds great. The Bluest Eye by Toni Morrison. I mean, this is a classic, and I am absolutely keeping it. This is a book about Pecola Breedlove. She's a young Black girl. And every day she prays for beauty. She's mocked by other children for her dark skin. And all she wants is to be blonde and blue-eyed. And I cannot imagine living your life that way. It's just sad. It's gonna break my heart, and I need to read this. Now, Cold Mountain is up next. This is a Civil War story. I don't think I actually want to read this. I watched the movie and didn't even really love the movie, so why do I have this on my shelves? I don't know, but I'm going to get rid of it. Such a controversial book. Go Set a Watchman by Harper Lee. This was a version of To Kill a Mockingbird that Harper Lee said that she wrote and didn't publish for all of these many years. And then at the end of her life, as an older woman, I think she was convinced, or she decided she wanted to publish this, Go Set a Watchman, and it follows Skeeter as an older, not Skeeter, Scout. It follows Scout as an older woman. I think she's just like an adult at that point. And I think Atticus Finch is racist in here. Like it's quite different than To Kill a Mockingbird. So I want to read it just because there's so much controversy about this book. Yeah, but it's definitely controversial. Circling the Sun is next by Paula McLean. This is about a woman who wants to fly. She moves from from England to Kenya as a child. Her mother abandons her and she's raised by her father. I just don't know if this is for me. I just don't think I want to read this. You know what? Maybe I'm going to put this on my limbo shelf because I have heard good things about it. I'm putting on my limbo shelf. That's that. Yeah. To Kill a Mockingbird. Classic. Keeping it. The Invention of Wings by Sue Monk Kidd. This was the first Sue Monk Kidd that I read and really enjoyed it. We follow two women, Hetty, an urban slave in early 19th century Charleston, and Sarah, the family's daughter, and they are connected and bonded. I think they give Sarah Hetty as a birthday gift when she turns 11, which is a very strange thing to give someone. It's like you don't give a person, but they did, and that was considered a birthday gift. Weird and awful. Anyway, they become really close. I really enjoyed this book. It also follows the suffragette movement, so it was just good, so I'm keeping it. Okay, here's another one that I'm just not sure. It's Cutting for Stone. This follows twin brothers. Oh, this is not African history. They're brothers born of a secret union between a beautiful Indian nun and a brash British surgeon. The twins come of age as Ethiopia hovers on the brink of revolution. Anyway, I think I want to keep this because, my goodness, this has had a lot of buzz and it's very well loved, and so I'd like to know what all of the hype is about. March is a book that I'm kind of terrified of reading because my history with Geraldine Brooks isn't great. She wrote The Year of Wonders. Don't ever listen to the audiobook of The Year of Wonders because it will ruin it for you. This is about the Civil War, and we follow the father from Little Women as he goes to war. I do want to keep this because, I mean, I love Little Women. It's such a great book, and I've always been very curious about this book. I will not listen to this on audio in case it is Geraldine Brooks narrating it again, which was like a nightmare for me. But I'm going to read it in physical form. Feeding the Ghosts is a very difficult book to read. This is about slaves being brought over from Africa to America, and the journey is not easy in any way, shape, or form. This is probably one of the hardest books I've ever read, but it's also really good. Yeah, just picking it up makes me like sigh and have anxiety, but I want to keep it. It's so important. It's really, really well done, so I'm keeping it. Next up is The Last Days of Dogtown. I really enjoy Anita Diamant. This is about the village of Dogtown, and it truly is about the characters in the village and their interactions with one another. I don't know. I feel like this is like quite a departure from her normal work, but I still want to read it because it's her and she writes really rich characters, so I would like to keep it. Another book I have to keep is Homegoing by Gyasi. This is, oh my gosh, so brilliant. Just the structure of the book in and of itself is brilliant. We follow two sisters in Africa. One sister is thrown into slavery and sent to America. The other sister marries a slave trader in Africa and stays in Africa. And we follow the generations of people that, you know, follow them. It's so good. It's so good. And every single chapter you meet a new person. And every chapter would start and I'd go, well, I don't know if I'm going to feel very much about this character because I'm still hooked on the last character. Nope. You care about them all. You care about them all. It's so good. Mr. Pip will melt your heart and break your heart into a million pieces. This is about a little girl named Matilda who lives on a tropical island that is completely shattered by war. All of the white people have left except one person, Mr. Watts, who stays behind, and he steps up and decides he wants to teach the children. Now, he has no teaching background, so what he does is he reads Great Expectations to them. And it is about Mr. Watts, and it's about Matilda and the children in her class, and trying to learn in this kind of environment. And I really loved this book, and this is actually the type of book that I'd like to reread. Not the type of book. This is a book that I would like to reread. Just so good. Oh my gosh, another great one. Their Eyes Were Watching God. For very many years, this was my favorite book. I still adore this book. This is about Janie, who is such a rich character. She goes to live in one of the first all black towns. It's called Black Eatonville. And it is a love story, and it's about race and love and independence, and I just can't imagine not having this on my shelves. Glory Over Everything is the sequel to The Kitchen House, which I enjoyed very much. I'm keeping this one too because I loved it just as much. Well, not just as much. The Kitchen House was like in a league of its own, but I still really liked it, so I'm keeping it. And last is The Purchase by Linda Spalding. I'm not sure about this one. This follows a man who's an abolitionist, and he ends up strangely owning a young slave boy. Very unexpectedly. I don't know how. I'm kind of curious about it, but I think what I'd like to do is put it on my limbo shelf instead, because I just don't know. Okay, so I've only gotten rid of 4 books. There's 2 books that are just going, Cold Mountain and Song Yet Sung. And then 2 from my limbo shelf are The Purchase and Circling the Sun. I'm going to go over to my limbo shelf and look and see what I can take off of there to make it 5. Oh man, so I've got quite a few, and there are more in the back. This one right away, I'm kind of going, do I need this? The Homecoming? Yeah, I think right away. I'm gonna get rid of the Homecoming. I don't need it. Done. Guys, I forgot to close out that video. That was the last of my Konmari with me. Or was it? We still have to deal with the limbo pile, and there's another issue. So I'm gonna address that in another video. But I did okay with this one, I think. I did okay. I got rid of a ton. And there's so many beloved books on that one that it was tough. So let me know in the comments below how you think I did. I'd love to know. I'll talk with you soon. Bye!